Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today I will be giving you a personal guide to shopping at farmers markets. I have been an avid farmers market shopper for several years now and I have learned a lot over the years. I didn't really think there was anything to it besides going and buying stuff, but turns out there's a whole world inside of farmers markets that I wasn't aware of, and I think it's important, so I'm going to share with you today everything that I have learned over the years, and I hope that it is helpful to you, so let's do it. This is what I bring to a farmer's market. Firstly, I have my large reusable bag. If you want a big reusable bag, at least one to hold everything that you get, obviously. And then on top of that, I have all of my smaller produce reusable bags, and they don't have to be only used for produce, but that way I'm not needing plastic bags or anything like that from any of the vendors. They a lot of times will go by weight, so I'll just hand them this with whatever produce I want and they'll weigh it. And then these are reusable and washable and they save on waste. So I always make sure that I have those two things with me. You always want to make sure you have your money, obviously, but additionally I like to bring some cash. Sometimes vendors will be cash only and it sucks to be checking out everything you want and then find out that it's cash only and then not be able to get what you want. Otherwise, I pretty much just do a little bit of prep work before I go to the farmers markets. It can be really helpful and beneficial to do a little bit of research on the farmers market that you plan on going to before you go, just to see kind of like what they're about, how well they're advertised. Sometimes they'll have like a list of their vendors. To be able to research your vendors beforehand is awesome. But yeah, otherwise I just grab my reusable bags and my money and leave. So let's do it. Alright, so I'm here, I'm in a parking garage. I just got to the area where the farmers market is. It opened 15 minutes ago, and that's one of my tips, is to try your best to get to the farmers market as soon as you can when it opens, because a lot of vendors will sell out of their produce and their other goods, and that sucks to be the person getting like the last pick of everything. No one wants that. So I'm gonna grab my bags and we are going to go check out this farmers market. I'm excited, let's go. So shopping at farmers markets, most of the time you're doing it, especially when it comes to produce, and a lot of today is going to be centered around produce. You're going to a farmers market and you're paying a premium for the produce because you expect that these farmers grew it and that you're getting fresh local produce. Supporting local farmers is awesome, so you want to make sure that that's what you're actually doing when you go to a farmers market and that you're not getting ripped off by somebody who is just selling you food that you could buy for cheaper at the grocery store. One issue that is actually a really big deal at farmers markets that a lot of farmers are dealing with is vendors who are coming in and reselling produce. And what that means is, instead of having a farm or a family farm or a friend's farm or something that they're growing the produce at and they're bringing it to the farmers market, they're working with wholesalers, which are the same people who sell to grocery stores and restaurants, and they are getting produce from them and rebranding it as their own from a farm, and it is taking away business from actual local farmers who are honest working people and who are trying to keep their business running through selling at farmers markets. You want to make sure those are the people you're buying from. Otherwise, you might as well just go to a grocery store, which is fine, but then at least you know what you're getting. So, how do you know if you're dealing with a reseller? Well, there's a couple ways that you can tell. First of all, just by looking at what they have, what you want to look for is produce that is in season. And if you don't know what produce is in season in your area, you can literally just Google seasonal produce, state you live in, and it should come up with, you know, charts and graphs and lists of things that are seasonal in your area. Actual cool thing is the market that I went to today posted their own seasonal produce chart, and so I can go before I even walk into the market. I know what's in season, I know what I'm looking for, and if I see produce that's like way out of season, that's something that should kind of be setting off a little bit of suspicion in your mind. Another thing you should be looking for is produce that is packaged in plastic or has produce stickers on it. If you have a cucumber and it's wrapped in plastic exactly like you see at the grocery store, odds are that did not come from a local farmer. They are not putting their produce in plastic for the most part. If you're seeing berries that have the plastic clamshell containers, same thing. That kind of thing is another thing that might make you a little bit suspicious that you're dealing with a reseller. Another thing you want to look for is that all of the produce is not perfect and uniform. Real food that comes out of the ground doesn't really look like that. If you're looking at peppers and lettuces and potatoes and stuff and all of it looks exactly the same, that is another thing that should be a cause for concern. Not to say that if all of it looks the same, it didn't come from a local farmer. They might just have their produce on lock, I guess, but it just is like a higher possibility that you're dealing with a reseller. Another thing that you can look for is a lot of times you'll have your vendor booth and under it or behind it where their trucks are, they have the boxes and the containers that they brought the produce in. If you're seeing boxes that have other farms' names on them and these farmers are claiming that everything came from their own farm, that's definitely something to worry about. Whereas if you're seeing a bunch of buckets and reusable containers and stuff like that, you can probably guess that these people are bringing the food straight from their farm and they're not purchasing it somewhere else that is branded and doing business with these farmers. I would like to say that these tips that I'm sharing are not foolproof. It's not to say that if, you know, there's some packaging with the produce or it all does look uniform, that this is absolutely not a local farmer. These are just things that in general might be able to help you distinguish the real farmers from the resellers. Another thing that you can do if you're really not sure is ask questions. It's super important to know where your food is coming from anyway. And if these are true farmers, they have absolutely no problem answering your questions. They want you to know what you're buying. They want you to know about their produce. So, a couple questions that you can ask that are a really good way to tell who you're dealing with is, where is your farm? What's the name of your farm? And more of the times than not, even resellers will have a good answer for this. But another question, a really good question you can ask is, do you take visitors? And a lot of times genuine farmers don't, because it encroaches on their businesses, it requires special licensing to be able to have people come to your farm. But you're kind of looking more for how they answer. If they say, no, we don't take visitors, we find that it messes with our practices, or no, we don't have the licensing, and it's just a quick, good answer, that's what you're looking for. If people get a little bit weary and they're not quite knowing how to answer your question, that's probably not great.
Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so where is your farm located?
We're located in Platteville, Colorado, so it's up in northern Colorado.
Awesome. Do you guys take like visitors to your farms?
We do not.
You
So
don't?
we're not licensed for that.
Okay,
But
gotcha.
our neighbor, we always hype him up. If you've heard of Miller Farms, he does like basically only people that comes to his property and then like
Okay.
field trips and things like that. He's directly our neighbor, so you can see
Gotcha.
into all of our property.
Yeah.
So we send him there.
You can ask questions like, do you grow everything you sell? And a lot of times they'll say, oh, well actually, we grew these onions and potatoes, but we got all of our greens and our fruit from a different farm. And then you can ask questions about that. A lot of times, even if farmers are using produce from other farms, they'll let you know. They're not trying to hide it, and that's still a good sign. But if you have people saying, oh yeah, I grew 100% of this, and you're seeing food that's not in season or that has stickers and packaging, that's definitely an alarm for a reseller.
Okay, do you guys like sell some of his stuff or do you grow everything
So
yourself?
we grow everything ourselves.
Awesome.
Everything is organic from our farm, minus like the watermelons right now, tomatoes,
And potatoes and
onions.
And where do you guys get those from?
California.
And
California.
then watermelons, Arizona.
Okay.
The tomatoes are hot house, but still from Colorado.
There's
Okay.
Pablo. Yeah.
Another good question about farming methods is what kind of sprays do you use, or pesticides? If they're claiming to be organic, they should especially know the answer to this question. And again, with this, it's not that you personally need to know all of the sprays and pesticides used in farming. You're looking for how they answer. If they answer quickly and honestly and knowledgeably, that's a really good sign. If they're kind of wishy-washy and they don't really know, or they say, you know, we use pesticides and they don't really know how to go into it, that's a sign that you're not dealing with a farmer. Same thing, you can ask what they use the pesticides for. So yes, they use pesticides. What's that doing? What pest specifically is that preventing, you know? And just stuff like that. Real farmers will know the answers to these questions and they will have no problem sharing this information with you.
So it's 100% organic. Do you guys use like sprays and stuff still?
So we do not use any like pesticides.
Right.
If anything, when our greenhouses, we use like a fish fertilizer, which is
Okay.
organic. It's
Right.
based from a fish.
And
So.
what's that for? Like what's that for?
Just to help with like bugs.
Okay.
So like to keep aphids and stuff off, because if it's
Awesome. Yeah.
they eat the leaves young, we can't retransplant.
Right.
So
Okay.
just that to keep them off.
Another question that I really like to ask is just, when was this harvested? When did you pick it? Most of the time they will know, I picked these tomatoes last Wednesday. We got these strawberries over the weekend, you know? Basically though, with all of these questions, you're just looking for these people to be open and honest and knowledgeable. And if they are being wishy-washy or they're avoiding your questions, that's really not a great sign, and you should probably take your business elsewhere.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you. And you?
Good. I'm good. Do you know where these came from?
Paco, do you know where the cucumbers came from?
Where come from that cucumber?
The cucumbers are from Paonia.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have stuff from probably today, like 16 different farmers.
Yeah.
So we work with tons of different farmers. So we've got stuff from Brighton, Palisade, Larimer County, Pueblo.
Yeah.
And then within those cities, there's different farmers, like
Yeah.
3 different people in Pueblo.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Do you guys sell at just this market?
Yeah,
Just
so
one?
that's all we can handle.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
have
it's huge.
a
And you're busy.
wholesale produce company too.
Okay.
So and so like my company is the operator of this co-op.
Okay.
And our wholesale operations, we service restaurants and markets all over Denver
Okay.
Metro and Northern Colorado.
Gotcha. Is it
So,
restaurants or is it also like grocery
Restaurants,
stores?
small markets, some farmers market people too.
Okay. And they buy
Pretty much
from
everybody.
you.
Food
That's
trucks, yeah. And then we have this.
I even had the chance to speak with one of the people who works and represents the market, and he was happy to answer some of my questions about the produce vendors.
Excuse me. Do you work for the Colorado Fresh? Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions? I'm taking a vlog for Farmers Market Guide.
Sure.
Awesome.
No problem.
Mostly I'm focusing on the produce vendors, and I'm wondering if your markets have any issues with reselling,
No, not really.
or how you guys like monitor it.
So what we have is mostly all of our people are growers. So what we do have is we have a situation with our growers that we allow them to partner with other organizations, other farmers.
Okay.
And then so they're supposed to put on their list when they send us a copy of what they plan on having,
Okay.
what their sources are.
Okay.
And so that's how we control that.
Nice.
And so this year we have a really exciting opportunity that we have with what we are calling the Cherry Creek Co-op.
Okay.
And so they're working with 27 different farms.
Nice.
So it's a really good program because what it's doing is it's working on keeping the farmers at their fields, at their farms, because it's really hard for them to be at the market because then they lose a whole day of growing.
Right, yeah.
Of work. you
Right.
know. And so I was a grower for 18 years.
Wow.
And so I started in Boulder as a grower. And what I did was I did the same thing, and then I would get back to my farm and I would have to be behind.
Day behind, right, exactly.
But anyway, I think it's an exciting thing.
Yeah,
and
100%.
and we don't want people to ever think that people are like wholesaling. down
Right,
here or something
exactly.
like that.
Yeah, I've just
So
been
they should
learning
always
that-
ask
Yes.
and ask where the sources of
Right.
the produce, and people generally I think are
Yeah,
feeling
exactly.
very positive about
And what's your name?
Chris Burke.
Awesome, thank you. I appreciate it.
One question you can ask, this is more to know how fresh and how long it's been that your produce has been out of the ground. You can ask, do you sell your produce at other markets? And if they do, that's no problem. They're trying to sell their produce and they're trying to make money, but it might mean that your food is a little bit less fresh. And a lot of people know and a lot of people don't that the moment you pick a fruit or a vegetable from the ground, from the tree, whatever, it begins to lose nutrients. So the longer that it's been since that produce has been harvested, the likely less and less nutrients you're getting from it. I was also really impressed with the answers that I got from the person who worked with the market and his knowledge. It sounds like this particular market does have a couple things in place to make sure that their vendors are being honest and straightforward, but that is not always the case. A lot of farmers markets in general are really under-regulated. There's not a lot of regulation or rules going on. It's really easy for vendors to be dishonest about what they're selling, and they might not be telling the truth. Just because you ask the question doesn't mean that they're giving you an honest answer. That's why it's really important to listen for the tone of their voice and how quickly they can answer and how maybe they react to you asking questions in the first place. But yeah, I wanted to also give a couple tips about how to store the produce that you get from the farmer's market. I'll share a couple tips with the produce that I purchased today. So with things like cucumbers and peppers, those can both be stored in the produce drawer of your fridge and they will stay fresh for a week or two. Cherries also should be stored in the fridge and they should be kept cold and dry. You don't want to wash them ahead of time, just wash them before you eat them or before you use them. Something like tomatoes, you should never put tomatoes in the fridge, never. Keep them on your countertop or wherever you keep the produce that doesn't go in the fridge. Anything like kale or pretty much any leafy green that you get, the best way to store that is to take a damp, cool paper towel or dish rag and wrap your greens in it and then store that in the fridge. That keeps them crisp longer. It keeps the moisture from the towel they can draw from, and that keeps them from wilting prematurely. Other than that, a good rule of thumb I like to use if I don't know what to do about produce is just to think about where you get it in the grocery store. If it's on the dry racks, it's not being refrigerated and it's not wet, do that at home. Don't put it in the fridge, don't get it wet. If it's kept in the store in the areas where they sprinkle, then keep it damp and keep it in your fridge. That's a good rule of thumb I like to use when I am not sure where to put produce to keep it fresh longest. So anyway, I hope that you found this helpful and I hope you learned something. If I missed anything or if you have any insight to farmers market knowledge, I would love for you to drop that in the comments. Otherwise, I hope you guys have fun this farmers market season and we'll see you next time.